Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Streaming Alchemy. I'm John Mahoney, and on today's show, we're going to be taking a look at a way you can handle phone call ins in your production, and we're going to be leveraging Google Voice, Dante, and some vMix scripting to do that. But before we get to that, again, I want to invite everyone, if you have any feedback, any questions, just post them in the comment section below. Also, if you'd like to join us on air, if you'd like to give us a call and be here in the studio with us, just click on the URL below. That should also be in the show notes, so you can just copy and paste from there. And somebody from the studio will get you on air with us. So let's get started. One of the things that we've heard from people is while there are so many different ways available to bring remote guests into studios today, especially with technologies like WebRTC and SRT, there are still situations that come up where you just need to get somebody on the air quickly. Some of that could be as a plan B for you can't connect to somebody because they have rigorous firewalls or in a location where they can't make that type of connection, but they can still get on and talk to you on the phone. So, I mean, that's a great use case, even outside of just wanting to have the ability to take in phone calls where you may want to be able to use this type of approach. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using, as I mentioned, three things: Google Voice, Ordinates Dante, and some vMix scripting. And we're going to use vMix as sort of the master hub for everything we're doing here. So let's get started by taking a look at Google Voice. If you have a Google account, which most of us probably do, this is a service, it's both commercial for business and free for consumers, where you can sign up to get your own phone number and use that phone number on your computer to dial traditional landlines and cell phones outside of the pure IP space that most computer communications work in. And that's over at voice.google.com. So if you need to get on, you can certainly jump on that way and sign up for this. But once you have this, what Google Voice gives you is the ability to take a phone call and to route the audio from that phone call out over your network, and to take audio from your computer or the network and route that back to the remote caller. And that means that you have now a bridge to connect these two worlds. Everything that comes into your computer can now be routed in and out over IP. So we're doing that routing using Dante. So Ordinates Dante is an IP-based audio protocol that is designed to let any system that it's operating on transmit across a number of channels. A lot of them are 16, some can be up to 64 channels, I believe. So you have a lot of individual audio channels you can use, and you can take any audio that you originate on that system and send it out any one of those channels, and you can listen to any of those. You have 64 listeners, or up to 64 listeners, and you can listen to any of those to take audio and bring that into your computer. And the only things that can send you audio would be other Dante devices. So it forms a very cohesive network. And what we are doing for setting this up is we're taking the operator's headset, so that would be what whoever would answer the phone call would handle, and it has a microphone, and it has the speakers, the earpieces. And what we're doing is we are using Windows to route the microphone out over Dante, and we're using Windows again to route a Dante source into these headphones. And what this lets me do, as opposed to setting this up in Google Voice where I just plug this in as a USB headset and say, my mic here, my USB mic is what the guest hears, what the caller hears, and my headset is how I hear the caller. Now, because it's all routed over Dante, I can let vMix take the audio from the mic and route that however I think is important inside of vMix. And I can then take a single Dante feed from vMix, route that to the headset, and that lets vMix handle whatever audio comes back to my operator headset. And the same thing exactly is done for the audio coming from and going to the remote caller. So in order to do this, we have to set everything up inside of these two systems, my vMix system and my caller system with Google Voice. So I have a diagram here which gives you a quick overview of the way we really looked at setting this up. So here on the Google Voice system, we're sending the audio out from the caller over 2 channels, and we're receiving audio that we send back to that remote caller across 2 channels. And we're also, as I mentioned, using Windows to transmit and receive the microphone headsets. And this gives me that open ability. On the vMix system, we are doing something very similar. We are setting up inputs, audio inputs on vMix, which I'll jump to in a second, and we are taking those in through Dante channels, and then we are routing 2 audio buses out of vMix on the channels 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 to send those back to the caller system. So that's really how we're doing that, and we use a utility that Ordinate makes available called Dante Controller that lets you sort of do the patching to make all these connections. But if I jump into my vMix screen here, what you'll notice now is I have this window here which has something called audio outputs. I went to, let me just go back to how I got to this. I went up to settings over here, and then I can go over to audio outputs. And in audio outputs, I now can route any of the audio on any of my buses out to physical or virtual devices. And so in this case, I'm taking everything that's on bus A and I'm routing that out, Dante's 3 and 4 channel, and I'm taking anything on bus B and routing it out 5 and 6. So this is what I talked about with sending audio back. So whatever I put on channel A, in this case, is going to be transmitted back to the remote caller. And whatever is on channel B is going to be transmitted back to the operator. So in this case, if I want the operator to hear the caller, I am taking those as inputs here in vMix. I have the caller audio, and as we mentioned before, all of this stuff is routed around things that we set up inside of Dante. Oh, let me not do this. I don't want to shut this off. So, so what we have here in setting this up is this caller audio input is the audio coming in through 2 Dante channels, and the operator audio is the audio coming in from the mic for 2 Dante channels as well. And so when the operator talks to the caller, what is actually happening is on the caller system, where I have Google Voice running, the operator microphone is transmitted into this channel here on my vMix interface, the operator audio. It is routed to bus A, which is what gets routed back, and the caller then receives that audio coming back to them over bus A back on the other system. So now I'm using vMix as this central smart switch for how I route everything, and it's coming in across 2 systems. It could be multiple systems, it doesn't really matter, but that's what we're using for this example. And the way we're setting this up is we are using scripting to control how this audio from the operator and from the caller gets routed into the production and back to both the caller and the operator that in there for listening and monitoring what's going on. So let me, before we jump on to how we do that, let me just catch up with We have a lot of people commenting. So Jawad, thank you very much for joining us. David, great to have you here. Thank you very much. And Rudy, always he's our first man in the comments, and I really appreciate that. Uh, we have Scott Whitney. Scott, how are you doing? Scott actually is asking a question about bringing using Dante to bring audio from outdoor into the vMix system. All of a sudden, it stopped working. Can I hire you to get help with this working correctly? Well, Scott, give me a call, and I'll see if there's anything we can do to give you a hand here. I'd be happy to jump in and help. So we also have David from Costa Rica. David, thank you for joining. Matey the Great, always a pleasure. Good to see you here, Matey. And we also have Otis. So, Otis, thank you for joining us from Texas. Always great. So, let's jump into the next piece here. So, the way we're working with this is that we have two modes. When the guest calls in, we have first what we call off-air mode. And in that mode, the guest is talking to the operator, and the operator is talking to the guest. So the guest audio is routed to the operator headset, and the operator mic is routed to the guest input through Google Voice. So that gives us a very simple way to do that as a conversation. But now when somebody goes on air, when we want to bring that call alive, what we do is we change things around. The caller's audio is now moved in, so it is part of the master audio, which would be what's streaming to the audience. The guest, the remote caller, now hears all of the audio that would be in the master audio, but as a mix minus. So their own audio isn't included in that. And that's what we use bus A for. In bus A, we have all of the sources that are in master minus the guest that's talking. So that gives us the correct mix to send back to them. In parallel, when we go on air, the operator now gets to hear everything that's going on in master, but their microphone is cut off, so it's not routed anywhere. And that gives us the ability now for the operator to monitor what's going on, but not have a chance of accidentally interrupting the guest or coming out across the master audio. So let's take a look at how we do those two things. I got this over here. So here is, we have two scripts that we did for this, off-air and on-air. And what we're doing in off-air is we are basically going through all of the inputs that we have and saying how many inputs do we have in total in this session. And we are going to then act on them one by one to copy around what has to be shut off and turned on during the off-air session. So we have that, the operator audio input and the caller audio input. We also need to detect which inputs in vMix include the operator and which inputs include the caller, so we know how to handle those in a special case. So as usual, we take in and load the XML model. This should be old school for everybody that's been watching this for a while. And what we're doing now is we're going and finding all the inputs. So we create an XML node list based on all the nodes in vMix inputs that are of type input. And that gives us basically a list of all the inputs in vMix. And then we use a property of that list called count to get the total number of inputs. So what we do here is in getting all the inputs, count tells us the total number, and then we're going to loop through them to do what we need to do. So the first thing is there are certain inputs inside vMix that do not have any audio. So things like images, things like titles, they would be sources that do not have any audio. So if you try to do audio things with them, they throw an error. So what we're going to do to start off is we're going to come in and get any item named audio buses that is in the current input. And if we cannot find that, so what we're doing in this list is basically saying get the the leaf in the XML called audio buses, and that will set that into input audio routes. And then what we're doing is we're checking first to see if it's nothing. Because if it's nothing, that means this is not an input with any audio. So we don't want to do anything. And what we're doing in this for loop, which is counting through all of our inputs, is we just say, skip over everything else, go to the next input. And that's what we're doing here. But if it does have audio buses, that means it's routing audio to different buses, then what we're going to do is, when off air, we're going to remove everything, basically all the audio sources from bus A and bus B, because we're using those audio buses in off-air mode for the operator and the remote caller to talk. And so we shut all of the audio off that is going on in them, and then we get the operator input, which again, we've done this by setting a specific name for that input, and that name is operator audio. And so we find if this input, we find the input that has operator audio, and we turn around and set this to say, now set them so they hear the audio on bus A, which will be the remote caller talking. And we do the same thing. We have a special name called caller audio for the input we use for the remote audio coming in and from the caller. And in finding that, we basically turn off all the audio coming from master and bus A. They don't want to hear themselves. And we just route the audio to bus B. So now we've set this up in off-air mode where the two guests are talking. In on-air mode, we do a lot of the stuff, and it's very similar. So here's the on-air script. So all the stuff in the beginning is things we've done already. And again, we check to see if things are images or titles, because we're not going to play around with those. But as we loop through these inputs now in on-air mode, what we want to do is we want to say, if this input source has its audio being routed to master, we now want to also route that to bus A and bus B. So this means that the remote guest will hear everything that's in master, and the operator, the person who handles the call, will also hear everything that's going on in master. So they're both now listening to the live program. What we are doing differently, though, is for the operator, when we get their input, we're turning around and we're basically muting them on everything. So we don't want the operator to hear, to be able to speak and get audio on air. But for the caller, what we want now is we want their audio to go on to the master bus, because now they're going out live on program. But we also want the operator to hear them in addition to the other sources that are on the master bus. So this is now being routed to bus B. And so this is a very simple mechanism and very simple scripting, really. But what we're doing is we're letting vMix control the mixes that get sent back. And in this case, now the operator is hearing the studio audio and hearing the guest, but their mics are being routed nowhere, and the guest is now on air talking. But there's a couple of other things that we wanted to touch on, and the first one is having a push-to-talk capability. Now that you have this guest and they can route in and talk all on and off air, it would be nice when they're on air if the operator, when they're listening to the conversation on air, could potentially notify the guest, sort of like an IFB, what's going on. So if, say, the show is going to wrap up and this is the last question, the operator may actually want to push to talk and jump on and talk to this guest. So how can they do that? It's actually pretty straightforward. All we're going to do is we're going to find the operator's input coming in, which we've done everything in the past. And what we're going to do now is we're going to route their audio to bus A. And that means the guest can hear this audio. It's not going out on master, but the guest isn't listening to master. When we went on air, we created a copy of master onto bus A, and they're listening on bus A. So when the operator talks on that bus A, the guest hears it, but the audience that you're streaming to will not. And we have this set up basically to use a push down on a button as push to talk, and that routes the audio to bus A. And then when I release that button, we use that as the trigger to do push to talk off, which is basically resetting the operator's mic to route nowhere again. And that makes it very, very simple to have that type of quick IFB, sit up straight, we're ending up, with this last question, whatever you want, have that sort of conversation back with the remote talent. So as a composite of technologies, this is actually really, really powerful. It lets you use essentially free tools with Google Voice. It lets you use Dante, and we're using Dante Virtual Sound Card here. So that's like a $30 in the US, $30 for each system you want to run this on. So there are lots of other Dante options. And potentially, even though we showed this with Dante, you could do this with a mixer as well and have other capabilities in here. So we think this is pretty powerful. But what I'd like to do is I'd really like to end this by just showing you how this would actually look. So over here, if I were to open up my Google Voice, and if I have somebody give a call, so when this audio comes in, it's being heard in the headset. And now, let me just set this up. So now you can see, let me turn around here as the operator. So I'm just talking now, and you can see if we swap over here, you can see this is the audio for the operator that's moving. I'm talking in this headset. And now if my caller speaks to me, so now you see that their audio is moving. And if you look down here in the way we've routed this, the caller audio is being routed to bus B, and the operator audio is being routed to bus A. So now, if I press, I have a toggle button over here. If I press the button to go on air, so let me, oh, sorry, I didn't press the right button. So if I press the button to go on air, you now have the caller audio going to master, and you have that going to bus B as well, so the operator can hear. And the operator's audio is going nowhere. But if I reach down and push to talk, now I'm holding the button down, and you can see that the operator's audio is live again, and it is going out bus A. But when I remove my finger from it, it is no longer active, and the remote guest now does not hear anything. But in this now, this guest, you could put up an image and have them talking over the background. But let me thank you for giving us a call for the demo here, Matt. I appreciate it. So let me just hang this up. But this gives you now, as I said, a plan B when other connection mechanisms don't work. And it's also something that you may potentially want to use behind the scenes totally. So this could be something where you just need somebody who needs to do coaching or play a producer role and work with different guests. You could now have them just come in over the phone into a studio, especially if you have a limited number of channels for bringing in the actual guests you want to go on air with. So let me see, before we wrap up the show, we have a few more people have popped in to say hi. So we have Opeyemi. I hope I've said your name correctly, Opeyemi. Thank you for joining us from London. Great to have you here. And we have Ronald as well from Daphne, Alabama. So Ronald, welcome. Great to have you here. So that's everything that we wanted to cover with this. I'm happy in our after show to go into more detail about any components of this, because I know there are a lot of moving parts in this one, but hopefully this will give you some different ways to think about how you manage audio, especially audio across multiple systems, and potentially integrating Dante into your audio mix as a way to give you more flexibility and dynamic scriptable control over where audio goes and what gets in each feed that you're sending out. So uh, if I don't get to see you in the post show, thank you very much for joining, and we'll see you all next week. If not, we'll be back in a couple of seconds and kick off the post show. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you joining us. Bye. So, hello, everyone. Uh, Thank you very much for taking the time to go through this with me. Uh, this is a show that really came from people that have said, I am sometimes I just get to Showtime. I can't work with a client. They've got terrible corporate firewalls, and everything is not going to work. And so the two steps we always talk to people says, get them on their cell phone and see if they can connect via their cell phone. And sometimes that will work for WebRTC based guests. Other times they just don't have good enough internet connectivity, or you can't talk them through getting off of Wi-Fi, which is also in the corporate space, which is also behind the firewall. So in cases like that, that's really where this came from. People were just saying, well, how could I just have them call in? If I needed to do that, that would be great. So this is where this came from, and we've used Google Voice here for a number of years as both for doing testing and also for just having a backup phone when we need one. And it just seemed like a logical mix, and also a good way in this year to talk a bit about Dante. And we talked last week, and thank you everybody that watched. We had a lot of fun talking to Chris Burgos and discussing NDI5. And Dante is in some ways a similar protocol to that. I have a question here. So David, I was wondering if you guys, if I could show you guys a script we did last week. It gets the like number from a YouTube video and calculates a percentage with a set goal. David, I would actually love if you have something you'd like to share with us, and we could certainly talk about it on the show. If there's something that we could build a show around with it, that would certainly be something we'd love to do. And also, if this is something you want to share with everybody in the Streaming Alchemy community, we could also put this up on our GitHub account so that people would be able to download it and work with it. So, absolutely, David, we'd love to have you, share a script with us, and if you want to make time to jump on a call, be happy to do that as well. So, so Gary just jumped in and said, very handy stuff. So Gary, thank you. And John Drinkwater. John, always good to see you. Hope all is going well. He is the Toastmaster from the UK. One of the people that's been around with us for a long time and has been doing some incredible stuff himself. So John, always good to see you. So if you have specific questions for audio, please just drop them in the comments and we'll get to them. And always, if you wanna give us a call, you can jump on air with us, and we'd love to have you as part of the conversation. Just jump on the URL that we have in the show notes, and that should be great. So, right, David. Unfortunately, right now we don't have everything set up to make that happen. If we want to do this, we could certainly do this for next week's show. So in the post show, if you'd like to join, we could have this set up with you, so we could go through and make that happen. That would be a little more straightforward than trying to hack something into the the setup on a rush. But I definitely would love to to have you on. If you can wait till next week, that would be great. We'll get it planned and scheduled. So let's see. So Otis was asking, how many channels of Dante can you bring into vMix? So as far as I know, uh, vMix would see Dante using something like ASIO, and so you could bring in as many channels as are available. So something we didn't talk about in talking about Dante is that there are two modes that Dante talks. One is ASIO, which is just like uh, a DAW would talk, an interface for a DAW, where you could have you know many input channels, each of them discrete. Uh, the other is it can talk with something called Windows device model. Now the difference between the two is Windows device model gives you up to, I believe, 16 channels, but they're in stereo pairs. I believe vMix will let you split them into monos, which is great. So it sort of gives you the full 16 channels in Windows device model. The advantage to Windows device model is it works with any software that can read and write a direct show Windows audio or video device. So it doesn't need special drivers or anything like that. ASIO gives you more capability and provides for more channels, but it does require some type of driver-like knowledge of the connections you're making, and is definitely something that is a little more complex and wouldn't be available in every situation. So WDM devices will always show up in Chrome if you're using it as an input for audio. So you could use Dante to stream to a Zoom call, for instance. That would work great. ASIO, I think it would depend on what drivers you had installed and what they supported. So it can be differences there. But those are the two different ways. So with ASIO, I think you can go up to the full number. With WDM, I think you can go up to 8 stereo pairs or 16 mono channels of audio. I could be wrong, so if there's somebody here who wants to correct me, please do that. So the Opayemi just said you can do a vMix caller. Opayemi, using something like vMix call is great in a lot of situations, but part of what we were talking about is either somebody doesn't have access to a device that's capable of running a browser, either because of bandwidth or because of limitations on the device, or you have tried that and it isn't working and you need sort of a plan B. And the great thing about the phone system is it takes an awful lot to knock out the phone system. So you can almost always bring somebody in through the phone. And so that's really the difference. If anybody had a choice, they would probably much prefer using either live to air or vMix call or one of the systems that would be used to bring in remote guest audio and video. But in those cases where that isn't practical or technically possible for a variety of reasons, this was really done as a good general example. But it's also more of an example around routing audio, because audio isn't something we spent a lot of time with in this season show. And I want to make sure that we touch on it, because audio is such a vital part to get right in video production. And it's usually something that is put off to the end. So definitely, take this as more than just the topic at hand. Look at it in the broader context of some of the underlying things that we're talking about having available to use, and then roll that into things that may make sense for you. And some of that could be, to be honest, that could be something you may want to do with vMix Call, where you'd have some of these things and bringing people into a green room and putting them on air. So a lot of these same concepts would apply when using something like vMix Call or Live to Air. So definitely a broader use case than what we outlined here with just phones. So Mady said, and one question for you. I can get my hand on a TriCaster Mini for around 1,700 pounds sterling. is that worth it? Uh, it has a Threadripper 64 core and use OBS. It's a bit iffy to use. So that that's a hard one, maybe, because I'm not very good at sort of international pricing. So in the U.S., the Mini HD4, and I'm assuming that's not the SDI version. I believe that's the HDMI version. So those, based on what it is, those things in the U.S. would sell for about between $5,000 and $6,000 new. And now that they replaced it with the 4K, I really don't have a good sense of the used market on that. The things that I like in the TriCaster are really around the workflow. Love the virtual sets. The scripting in vMix is much better, and you can do a lot more scripting wise than you can with macros in the TriCaster. But it's, again, that's a tough call. I would probably, if there's somebody else in the community here, if you want to just post this on the Streaming Alchemy group and see if somebody else can come up and I can sort of float this around. But I don't want to steer you wrong by saying it's good or bad. I love TriCaster, and like I mentioned multiple times, we use that here for production. But definitely, if the price is right, having a TriCaster in your kit is a great thing, and would certainly be money well spent. But I just don't know pricing to give you a good solid answer for that. So I'm sorry about that. Okay, so just a couple things then. So before I want a few more things I can show while we're here. If you have any other questions, let's get them into the comment section. I'll show this stuff, and that way the questions will have a chance to show up, and I'll try to answer them before we leave here. But one of the things that I wanted to pop into was first Dante Controller. So we talked about Dante and how we route everything, and Dante provides Dante Controller as a framework for doing this routing. So from a central location, you can look at all your audio sources that are coming into Dante, and then all the potential sources where Dante can be sent to, and you can make these connections. So a good way to think of this is almost like a cascade where audio falls down from the top, and anybody that wants to pick it up can just put a little checkbox there, and that will be routed to those Dante inputs on any of these receiver systems. So that's really the model that Dante uses. And one of the reasons Dante is really popular in the audio video space, where people do conferences and events, is that unlike NDI, and I love NDI, so this is not any slight to NDI. What Dante lets you do is from a central location, map everything. So I can turn around and say, I want these outputs from this device to map to these inputs on these devices. And you can map from one device to multiple receiving devices. So very, very flexible that way. But NDI requires that I go to each device and subscribe to things. So different model. This is a routing model. The other is a subscription model. So in the routing model, you can do that centrally. In the subscription model, you have to go to each endpoint and make that happen. Now, you could have one sort of substitute for the other, where you could fake it, where you centralize it and tell everybody subscribe to these things or change your subscriptions. So there are ways to do this, and I do expect that's something we'll see potentially somewhere along the line in NDI 5 even, because they're definitely focusing much more on the audio and the routing side, and that would be a big feature. That was the first thing I wanted to point out. The other thing, which is definitely something that we just sort of ran through when let me get this out of here. So how did we handle routing the audio in Windows from the microphone and the headset to Dante? And so I mentioned that we did this all through Windows. And one of the things in Windows Sound dashboard, you have the ability to go in and look at all your audio devices. And all you have to do is, so we said that everything that we were working with for the operator was coming from Dante. Let me see, was it 3 and 4? Yep, no, that was 5 and 6. So if I go over here to 5 and 6 and go to properties and go to listen, what you can see here is that I am saying anything that's coming in on Dante channels 5 and 6, I want you to listen to it on this device. So what I'm basically doing is sort of short-circuiting what's going on in Google Voice and doing a direct route to say, take everything that's coming in on Dante 4 and 5 and 5 and 6 and route that into my headset. And likewise, if I come down, let me jump to the headset microphone, which is the other piece. So I have this microphone here, which is USB connected. But if I go here and select properties and listen, what I'm telling this to do is to say anything that's coming into this microphone, route that now out DVS transmit channels 5 and 6. So this is what I meant when I said we're using Windows to sort of route what's going on with our headset here. We're taking these two things in, go to Windows properties, and go to the Soundbox properties, and we're doing this routing in and out of Dante. So those are two things we didn't get to in the show, but I thought were definitely worth mentioning as we pull this together. So, okay, so Opeyemi asked, how can I get my hands on Dante? Never used it before. So Dante is produced by an Australian company called Audinate, Audinate. So if you go to audinate.com, and I'll try to post this in a comment so you have this available. If you go to Audinate, Audinate.com, you can learn everything about Dante. It comes with hardware devices. It comes with Dante Virtual Sound Card, which works on, I believe, Mac and Windows. So you can get all your hardware hooked up. And all of that information will be up there on the Audinate site. Audinate also has training materials because they do certification. They give you free training materials. So that would be something else that I definitely look at if you're really interested in learning Dante. But there are a lot of good sources out there on the on YouTube and the internet generally that cover a lot of the things inside of Dante and how you could leverage them. So, but yes, it requires a few things. It requires a license for Dante Virtual Sound Card, and the other thing it requires is some device that can clock all of the audio. So it can be something relatively inexpensive. So Audinate makes a Dante AVIO USB adapter, which allows you to get 2 channels in and 2 channels out, just plugging in the USB adapter. And that is just over $100, I believe, and is $100 US, and that will provide clocking. So these are different things. So if you have that as a system clock, then that would work for as many software audio devices you hook up with Dante. So definitely, can be useful that way. So let's see. So yeah, so I mean I don't want to go. We can do Dante in more detail in another show, but because it works across lots of different devices, they all listen to the same clock, and that's how everything stays in sync. So you don't have, lip sync issues or people coming from different sources, jumping around. And so let's see. We have a few more here. I have Marcellus. He said, I just purchased vMix 4K with Dogecoin. I'm trying to use vMix Call via cellular phone. What would you recommend for the best upload speed? So generally, what you would need for any sort of WebRTC connection would be a minimum of 2 megabits up. So if you can test that on the remote phone that you want somebody to connect to, keep in mind that phone and cellular connections in general can vary a lot. So that would be something where I'd want to make sure I had enough headroom. So if this were a guest I wanted to have live, that was important. then I would definitely, look for at least 4 megabits up, and potentially, scale down quality to preserve frame rate. So that would definitely be something I would do there. So, oh, I'm told we have a caller. So, okay.
Hey, hey, John.
Hello.
Are you listening to me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Uh, okay,
Oh,
great.
hi. How are you?
How's it going? Nice to
Very
see you
good.
again.
Same here. So,
Great. I thought, I think I can show you guys something I'm working on, as I said on the chat. But
yeah.
so what I did, let me share with you. You guys can put my cam full screen.
Yes, we can. So,
Okay, so what I did, I'm sharing my script with OBS, so you guys don't have to set the screen share and stuff. So what I did, let me just say to the guys what the script does. Um, I'm I'm building a overlay on vMix that gets the viewers from the live and also the likes from the live. So right now, I think your video has 3 likes, and so if I check right now, let me see if it's getting the right number of the likes. Yes, so it's just the likes. Don't know why isn't uploading. Right now, so uploaded. So you just did what I said. I can set a meta, a goal by the number of likes I would like to get on this video.
yep.
Then it shows how many likes I already got on the video. Then I have a progress bar that goes on exactly how my the percentage of the video is going. Sorry
Excellent.
because I'm not on the best day of speaking English right now. It's not my native language, so but uh, you guys can like the video like I'm just doing right now. So after 30 seconds, because of the time of the API of the YouTube, it gets updated, and the video will and the overlay will update it too with the progress bar and the percentages as well.
Excellent. So, I mean, I could definitely see that being great inside of an organization where they're trying to figure out, you know, how's an audience reacting to different topics, and that you're maybe talking about, and then seeing that on screen, definitely,
Exactly.
it definitely could be valuable. So, is this a script you'd be willing to share with people as well? For
Of course, definitely. By the way, I can show you the script. It's very simple. What I did here was, let me just share again.
sure.
Uh, what I did was, of course, got the vMix XML model. I set some variables here, like the goal, and the goal I'm getting from my title. So I can click in title editor, then I set my goal here. So if my goal is 250, I don't know why it isn't upgrading now. I promise I tested just before I enter here, but you know how it works.
Yes.
I know it is updating, but I don't know why. But I set the goal here, so I'm converting the goal to an integer because
Yep.
I have to do some math, right? I'm doing the same thing with the likes, and the likes and the goal I'm getting from my editor, right? And the likes I'm getting from a JSON from the data source.
Hmm.
So I'm getting this JSON that is video statics from statistics
Yep.
from the YouTube video. So I have 6 likes right now, and I set this to my data source on the GT title. Then I do some math here. Result equals integer likes as 100, and something I found it's great if you use this. inverted. How it's called? Um, I don't remember how this algorithm is called. But if you use this inverted, it gets the result without the decimals, so you don't need to get later, like
Yep.
doing some math around and stuff. And so what I did was I opened my After Effects and did some external image sequence. Um, so I have literally 101 images here, and I'm updating via API exactly as the result string I'm getting from this count. So that's it. And
So
of course, I will share with you guys. I think I need to check why it isn't working properly right now, because I'm pretty sure I tested before, but you know how it works.
absolutely. Everything works before you release it.
Yes.
So no, I think that's really cool, and that's I think one of the big things that you get with scripting in general is that you can start to integrate things that I mean. So now you were integrating JSON from a JSON source from YouTube and sort of bringing that in and leveraging images that you store in your file system to put. So these types of things become very, very possible. And it also
Exactly.
means that you can publish stuff too. So if you don't just think of it as a receiver, but say there are things now in my studio that I can have publish different types of status. So maybe what you want to do, and this is just thinking, you could have another program running outside that may be doing more complex types of math, and
Like expression by
and
mouse, right?
then actually feed that into feed in that, use that in vMix to use scripting to do things like that. So this is definitely a cool thing, and that's I'm really happy you shared that. That's definitely something that if you know when you're ready, I'd love to put it up in the GitHub so other people can sort of take and move with it as well. And just make
Sure.
sure you put your own name and how people can contact you and in whatever you send along. So I want to make sure credit gets routed where credit is due because a lot of people put a lot of effort into these. So
That's right. That's true. That's true. But that's it. And thank you for opening my mind by your streaming alchemy shows, because I'm not a developer, so I wasn't coding since 2012, I think. So that's why I'm trying to get step by step learning some things. I didn't know nothing about Visual Basic, so it's kind of easy, guys. If you watch any of Streaming Alchemy shows, you can do whatever you want, like just I did. And thank you so much for your help.
David, thank you for the kind words. Everybody that's here, you know, there's a lot more than me. I just sit in front of the camera, but so thank you very much. Everybody really appreciates that. So and you know, David, if you want in the comments, just if you know have people that if you want people to contact you for anything, just post your email or an email if you don't want to get spammed. You know, that people can reach you at, and you know,
Sure. I will put my email right now on the chat, so you guys can contact me, and no problem. I can help you guys with whatever you guys want. Not on your guys level yet, but I'm getting there. So that's why I'm working on it.
well, it is great that you're doing that, and I appreciate you sharing that here. This is exactly what the post show is really about. Just you know, letting people sort of talk and share. So thank you for setting the example on that. I appreciate that, David.
Right. Appreciate it.
All
Thank you.
right, you take care. Thank you.
You too.
Okay, so let's see. So we got a few more things here. Let's see. So somebody was mentioning something about they're a local TV director and a freelance audiovisual technician, and they love using vMix for streaming professionally. Greetings from Chile, I'm guessing that is. So, Bastian, thank you very much for dropping by and for sharing here. So, let's see. Uh, who else we have? So Dan, great to see David sharing the scripting project live. Yes, Dan, that's great, and this is something I definitely encourage. If this is something that people would like to do, maybe as a show we do periodically, where we have different people on to talk about things that they've been doing with scripting. That's another idea. So please just share in the comments, or just get it to me at John at streamingalchemy.tv, and it'll come over to me. So definitely something that could be a lot of fun. So let's see. So we have John. Thanks for sharing your example. So David, that's is directed at you. So definitely cool stuff there, John. Thank you. Uh, so I I think we're probably done for the day. So everybody, thank you very much for being here for today's show, and we'll see all of you next Friday, same social time, same social channels. Take care, everyone. Thank you.